do not believe it's exactly enough information to make decisions based off of. And we have already lost a lot of trust with our partners in the EU. Our clients are in different sectors like aerospace, oil and gas, food and wine, gourmet food. And they have been pivoting each time the tariffs get adjusted. We didn't expect this adjustment so soon, but we have to keep in mind that even though it's 15% on about 70% of the products, the tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper still apparently will be at 50%, and that includes derivatives. So when we're talking about details, I've got this book behind me. That's the harmonized tariff schedule. That is the perfect example of how detailed these rules get. Each item is listed in there. And so we need to check each item and see if it's subject to tariffs and how high.
Well, so what kind of conversations are you having with these clients that you mentioned? Because there seems to be a feel in Europe today, I don't know if this is the case in China, that while there are elements of this deal that are clearly favoring the United States, at last we have certainty when it comes to tariff levels. The fact that we might not like 15%, but at least we know it's 15%. Does that resonate with your clients?
It does, in the sense that it is one set number, but it's a little bit misleading because we have layers of different types of tariffs that are still going on, like the steel and aluminum tariffs. Also, all 27 countries within the EU have to sign off on this agreement, and I haven't seen them do that yet. In fact, I've seen a little bit of negative feedback from the Prime Minister of France and Hungary as well, I believe. So we're going to have to wait and see if all the EU members agree to this. It seems to me that Ursula von der Leyen was correct when she said this is essentially the best we're going to get. It's good, but it's not great. 15% across the board is still higher than we're used to. And I'm really hoping that this reduction will include 0% tariffs both ways on aircraft and aircraft parts, which has been mentioned, but we don't have anything in writing. We don't have a written agreement with that level of detail.
Yeah, there's a lot that we have yet to see pen actually put to paper on. Michelle, when we consider what the whole point of these tariffs are, yes, in part it's about balancing the trade deficit with the U.S., hence why Europe is agreeing to make more purchases of U.S. goods like military equipment and the like. But the president also contends that a lot of this is about onshoring supply as well. Are companies that you're speaking with finding the ability to do that very quickly, to replace supply that may come from somewhere else that they're currently importing and try to just get it domestically in the United States? How long does that process actually take to find those alternative routes if they're available at all?
If they're available at all, it takes a very long time. We have clients in every industry that are importing from virtually every major country in Europe, and it is not a fast process to find another supplier. Same with China. A lot of suppliers had already moved from China, so they moved to Vietnam, or the importer might have moved its manufacturer somewhere like Mexico when the very first China tariffs came out under Section 301 under President Biden. But then they had to pivot because now the Mexico tariffs are up. So what our clients are doing is pivoting as best they can and saving as best they can, but some of them will go out of business if tariffs continue to rise. And I think we have to remember that this is still an increase. It is not, it's a decrease from what was threatened, but it is still an overall increase in tariffs for everyone.
You mentioned the French Prime Minister, Michel Francois Bayrou, on X, writing, "It's a dark day when an alliance of free peoples united to affirm their values and defend their interests resolves to submission." What's he talking about?
Oh, wow. Yes. So the Europeans were hoping for a lower tariff rate overall. They were hoping for a friendlier deal than we gave them, especially given our history with Europe. They had thrown out the number of 10% at one point, and I thought that maybe that would have been more reasonable in the eyes of the European countries, but they see 15% as still quite high and a slap in the face. It will impact trade, and it will be a cost to the U.S. importers. So it still presents a challenge, and it still presents an increase. And I think that some of the European leaders are disappointed.
Well, beyond the deal with just Europe, where I don't think I saw any mention of transshipping, Michelle, we have seen that mentioned in others, including the agreement that was reached with Vietnam, the idea that there would be even a higher tariff rate on transshipped goods that are coming in directly from China. I just wonder how hard that actually is to track and follow. How do we actually know where products are originating from if they're coming into the U.S. under cargo vessels with a different flag? How difficult is that, especially for importers, to try to navigate?
It's actually quite difficult. And we have been in the weeds of doing due diligence on suppliers and their suppliers and their suppliers and their suppliers. And it's more and more difficult to the point where companies are using software tools. We have 3 at least that we're using right now in order to ferret out who owns what and who is sending what from where. But to determine that something is not made with slave labor, for example, in the Xinjiang region, we have to go way back into the supply chain. And you can't always rely on manufacturers' affidavits because they may or may not be true and correct. So you really have to go behind and do due diligence behind the paperwork. It's becoming more and more difficult. And I'll add that on the export side, the Commerce Department has been throwing around a 50% rule, similar to OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control's 50% rule, which would mean on the export side, we're also going to have to look at ownership, who owns what and what percentage. It's very difficult from a practical perspective.
We've got about a minute left. Michelle, how worried are you that this White House is too eager to reach deals, to announce deals to the markets and to others who were promised all of these amazing trade deals, too eager to follow up on the details that you're talking about, never mind make good on national security promises when it comes to high-tech chips?
I believe they can do it. I'm somewhat optimistic that they can do it, but it takes months, if not years, normally to negotiate a trade agreement. And so this is way out of line with your typical free trade agreement internationally. This is a deal, and it's really a deal in the sense of a deal. We've got some purchases that the European Union is going to make, and the details as far as which tariff numbers, what tariff codes, those aren't all clear yet. We still have steel and aluminum. I do think the White House has been a bit eager to show its success, and that's great. It's a step in the right direction, but I don't think that our allies and other countries are pleased with it quite yet.